Last year, it was about May or so, I was at home and I was watching a game show on TV when I heard the doorbell. So I went to the door. I saw this young guy. Oh, he was probably in his early 30s. He was wearing coveralls and he seemed like a hard worker. "Good afternoon, ma'am," he said. "Sorry to bother you. I'm Brad and I'm working in your neighborhood. And I noticed that your house needs painting. When was the last time you had it painted?" Well, he seemed like a nice guy, really. So I said, "Now that you mention it, it was probably 25 years ago." Then he stepped back on the sidewalk and looks up at the gutters, squinting. He shows me places where the paint is blistered and cracked. Then he told me that with one heavy rainfall, the siding would swell. The repairs would be costly. Then he pointed to some spots on the underside of the gutter where the paint had cracked. Well, I started to believe him. What do I know about construction and renovations? He walks over to the side of my house on the driveway and he poked his finger at some spots where the paint was chipping. "I'm surprised those places haven't rotted yet. Kids' bikes against the siding, I'll bet." He was convincing, I'll give him that. Then he told me that he could paint my entire house in one day for $6,000. He told me to phone around and that I'd find that most painters would charge twice that amount. I told him $6,000's a fair bit of money. Of course I didn't tell him okay right on the spot, but that guy was so persistent. He asked me if I ever watched that guy on TV who's always going on about moisture in the house and how it causes mold. "Well," he says, "that's what could happen here. Mold, nasty stuff, makes people real ill." I asked him for a business card, and he said, "I'm too busy. I don't need business cards. Too much work." When you're good, well, you know it. He got me. It sounded like a good deal. He said he could start first thing in the morning. "Cash will do just fine, ma'am." And that was it. I know it was stupid of me not to talk to my family first, but I wanted to surprise him. So he came at 7:30 in the morning, very polite, and started doing his thing. I went out with a cup of coffee. "Something to cheer you up," I said. And he's like, "Well, no thanks. When I get started on a job, I like to go with the flow. Get the juices running," he said. He seemed to know what he was doing, though I did notice that he didn't sand the old surface first, and when I asked him, he said, "I don't need to. This paint is thicker than what most use. It fills in the cracks and seals the splits, so you'd never know they were there. Costs more, but saves on labor, so it's cheaper in the long run." What was I to say? Fresh paint, it looked good. By 5 o'clock, he knocked on my door. and said he was done. You weren't kidding about getting the juices flowing, I said. I went outside. I looked at my freshly painted house. I liked it. So I paid him in cash. He even gave me a receipt. Go figure. Guess what? 6 months later, the paint was all peeling off. The guy was a scammer. No business cards, a phony invoice, and his signature was nothing more than a scribble, unreadable, worthless. The receipt even said, satisfaction guaranteed, 1-year warranty. Boy, he got me good. $6,000 down the drain. I phoned Custom Paint and Siding and asked them to come out and take a look. They said he used the wrong paint on the old surface and he didn't prep the surface, so the paint was all falling off because it didn't bond. The only true thing that guy said was about fixing it. $10,000 to clean up the mess. The police can't find him, never heard of him. And because I paid him in cash, there's no paper trail for them to follow. If it's too good to be true, check references.